When you thought international diplomacy couldn't get any spicier, Benjamin Netanyahu just turned up the heat to volcanic levels and served Keir Starmer a diplomatic roasting so thorough it could power a small village. Welcome back to UK Daily Coffee, where we serve our political tea scalding hot and with zero sugar coating. That's right, folks. The Israeli Prime Minister has accused our very own Sir Keir being on the wrong side of justice, humanity, and history after Starmer, along with French President Macron and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, released a joint statement calling on Israel to end its military operation in Gaza immediately. It's the international relations equivalent of your neighbor telling you how to parent your children. Technically well-intentioned, but guaranteed to cause some serious diplomatic fireworks. In a video released after tragic murder, 2 Israeli embassy staffers outside the Capital Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C., Netanyahu didn't just push back. He unleashed a full-scale diplomatic offensive that would make a military strategist proud. He pointed out that the chant from the terrorists as he was taken by American police was exactly the same chant we heard on October 7th, a connection that added chilling context to his broader argument about international responses to Hamas. Netanyahu described Hamas as neo-Nazis, declaring that Free Palestine is just today's version of Heil Hitler. They want to destroy the Jewish state. They want to annihilate the Jewish people, who have been in the land of Israel for 3,500 years. It's the kind of stark historical comparison that makes diplomatic small talk at international summits significantly more awkward. I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. Netanyahu continued with all the diplomatic subtlety of a sledgehammer at a tea party. They are now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. It's like watching someone suggest giving a convicted arsonist their own matchstick factory, a proposal that raises some obvious questions about logic and safety. But here's where Netanyahu's critique gets particularly pointed and personal. You won't be surprised to learn that Hamas thanked President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer and Carney for demanding that Israel end its war in Gaza immediately. It's the geopolitical equivalent of being thanked by the school bully for telling their victim to stop fighting back. Technically a thank you, but probably not the endorsement you were hoping for. Netanyahu drove the point home with laser precision. Hamas was right to thank them, because by issuing their demand, replete with a threat of sanctions against Israel, not Hamas, these 3 leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. It's like threatening to punish the victim of a burglary for calling the police while offering the burglar a cup of tea and a sandwich. The Israeli PM then delivered the diplomatic equivalent of a knockout punch. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity, and you're on the wrong side of history. That's not just international criticism. That's a diplomatic uppercut that leaves marks. In the joint statement that sparked this international verbal warfare, Starmer, Macron, and Carney said, "We call on the Israeli government to stop its military operations in Gaza and immediately allow humanitarian aid to enter Gaza." They warned that we will not stand by while the Netanyahu government pursues these egregious actions. If Israel does not cease the renewed military offensive and lift its restrictions on humanitarian aid, we will take further concrete actions in response. It's like 3 friends staging an intervention, except the person they're intervening with has weapons and a very different understanding of the situation. The statement also called on Hamas to release the remaining hostages and made clear they supported a long-term political solution, which would include ending Hamas's control of Gaza, essentially asking for peace while threatening one side of the conflict. The UK has also announced this week that it was suspending free trade agreement talks with Israel and imposed sanctions on senior figures in the Israeli settler movement. It's the diplomatic equivalent of canceling dinner plans and blocking someone on social media. Technically possible, but likely to make future interactions significantly more awkward. Netanyahu wasn't finished with his critique of Western leadership, though. He suggested these leaders may think that they're advancing peace. They're not. They're emboldening Hamas to continue fighting forever, and they give them hope to establish a second Palestinian state from which Hamas will again seek to destroy the Jewish state. It's like trying to solve a fire by providing more oxygen. technically an intervention, but perhaps not the kind that achieves a desired outcome. He continued with a prediction that would make any regional security expert nervous. And mind you, it's not going to be a state free of Hamas. When you establish a Palestinian state, we've seen it, the radicals take over. Iran sends them in, and they take over. So don't give us this talk. It'll be a peaceful Palestinian state. It won't be. It's the geopolitical equivalent of warning someone that their new roommate comes with some very problematic friends. Netanyahu also appeared to connect the Washington, D.C. murders to statements by Tom Fletcher, the United Nations Emergency Relief Coordinator, who claimed on live television that if aid was not immediately lent to Gaza, 14,000 babies will die within 48 hours. The statement was reported internationally and cited by more than a dozen MPs in a House of Commons debate, before it later transpired that the claim had originated from a report estimating that 14,000 young children could be at risk of severe malnutrition over the next year, not 48 hours. It's a journalistic equivalent of a game of telephone gone horribly wrong, where potential risk over time becomes imminent disaster in hours, the kind of miscommunication that makes fact-checkers weep and politicians scramble for clarification. Netanyahu referenced Hamas's propaganda that says Israel is starving Palestinian children. And not only is Hamas putting out this lie, a few days ago, a top UN official said that 14,000 Palestinian babies would die in 48 hours. You see, many international institutions are complicit in spreading this lie. The press repeats it. The mob believed it. And a young couple is then brutally gunned down in Washington. It's a chilling suggestion that misinformation can have deadly real-world consequences, like shouting fire in a crowded theater, except the theater is the entire internet, and the consequences are measured in human lives rather than trampled feet. The Israeli embassy identified their murdered staffers as Yaron Lishchinsky and Sarah Milgram, real people with real families, whose deaths have now become part of this broader geopolitical argument. It's a stark reminder that behind all the diplomatic rhetoric and international statements are actual human beings whose lives hang in the balance. Netanyahu then presented his counter-narrative with the precision of a courtroom lawyer. Since October 7th, Israel has sent 92,000 aid trucks into Gaza. That's right, 92,000 aid trucks. That includes 1.8 million tons of aid. 1.8 million tons of aid. More than enough food to feed everyone in Gaza. Those are the kind of numbers that make for compelling evidence in any argument about humanitarian access. But here's where his argument gets particularly pointed. Yet as we had let the aid come in, Hamas stole it. They took a huge chunk for themselves. The rest they sold at exorbitant prices to the Palestinian population. And then they used the money they stole to recruit new terrorists to continue their war against Israel. It's like discovering that the charity you've been supporting has been using your donations to buy weapons. Technically, your money is reaching its destination, but not in the way you intended. Netanyahu outlined Israel's proposed solution. American companies will distribute the food directly to Palestinian families. They'll do so in safe zones secured by our military. And this will allow us to complete our goal of destroying Hamas while enabling aid to reach the civilian population. It's like setting up a food bank in the middle of a war zone. Logistically challenging, but potentially effective if properly executed. He concluded with a claim that would make any military historian take notes. I tell you this. No army in the world has ever gone to such lengths to provide aid to the civilian population in the midst of intense combat. It's a bold assertion that places Israel's military conduct in historical context. The kind of statement that invites both praise and scrutiny in equal measure. Responding to news of the Washington murders, Starmer said he thoroughly condemned the anti-Semitic attack outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. Anti-Semitism is an evil we must stamp out wherever it appears. My thoughts are with their colleagues, family, and loved ones, and as always, I stand in solidarity with the Jewish community. It's the kind of statement that demonstrates the complexity of international politics. You can strongly disagree with the government's policies while simultaneously condemning attacks on its citizens. It's like criticizing your neighbor's gardening techniques while still calling the fire department when their house is burning. What makes this international spat particularly fascinating is how it reveals the impossible position Western leaders find themselves in when dealing with Middle Eastern conflicts. Every statement risks being interpreted as taking sides. Every call for peace can be seen as endorsing one narrative over another, and every attempt at moral leadership invites accusations of moral blindness. For Starmer, being accused by Netanyahu of being on the wrong side of history puts him in some interesting company, including every Western leader who has ever tried to mediate Middle Eastern conflicts. It's like being criticized for your driving by someone who's currently stuck in a ditch. Technically, they might have a point, but their own navigation skills are questionable. The broader question this raises is about the role of international pressure in conflict resolution. Can Western leaders effectively influence Middle Eastern politics through joint statements and sanctions threats? Or do such interventions simply provide ammunition for all sides to claim international support for their positions? Netanyahu's response suggests that at least one key player sees Western pressure as counterproductive at best and actively harmful at worst. Whether you agree with his assessment or not, his critique highlights the enormous challenges facing anyone trying to broker peace in one of the world's most complex conflicts. So there you have it, folks. Benjamin Netanyahu serving Keir Starmer a diplomatic dressing down, so comprehensive it comes with its own side salad of international relations theory. Whether you see it as a justified defense of Israeli policy or an over-the-top response to legitimate international concerns probably depends on your perspective on Middle Eastern politics, and possibly your caffeine intake when reading international news. What do you think? Is Netanyahu right to criticize Western leaders for their approach to the Gaza conflict? Are joint statements and sanctions threats helpful tools of international diplomacy or counterproductive interference? And most importantly, when world leaders start accusing each other of being on the wrong side of history, is anyone actually on the right side? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this political espresso shot. And don't forget to subscribe for more daily doses of UK politics with extra caffeine. This is UK Daily Coffee, keeping democracy percolating one international incident at a time.